That night, surveillance cameras captured a moment no one wanted to believe was real. An 8-year-old girl walked out of a Walmart, hand in hand with a stranger. Her face was innocent, her eyes full of trust. But hours later, her body was found in a ditch. It was too late. And the whole country was shocked by the painful question, how could this happen right in the middle of a crowded supermarket? Cherish Perrywinkle. The name sounds like something out of a fairy tale, right? But her story ended not in a miracle, but in a nightmare. It was a June evening in Jacksonville, Florida, when everything seemed perfectly normal. A mother, 3 young daughters, a Dollar General, and then Walmart. Familiar, innocuous places, but also where fate began to change. Rain Perrywinkle, Cherish's mother, was struggling. She was a single mother struggling to make ends meet. That day, she took her children to buy necessities. She didn't have much money, so Rain stood in the store pondering each item. That's when Donald Smith appeared, a middle-aged man with silver hair, soft-spoken, and a friendly smile. He told Rain he had a $150 Walmart gift card, and he wanted to help her buy things for the kids. Rain hesitated, but then she thought, what if this was a small miracle on a tiring day? He said his wife was at Walmart waiting for him. They could drive over, buy some quick clothes for the kids, and then go home. Not everyone would be wary of someone who looked nice. And who would think a loving mother would fall for it? But the truth was, Rain believed him. She put the kids in Smith's car, and it was a decision she would regret for the rest of her life. The cameras at Walmart captured it all. Smith ushered the 3 of them in the door, smiling, chatting like they knew each other. The group walked down the aisles, picking out clothes, laughing as if it were a carefree shopping trip. No one saw anything out of the ordinary. There was no sign of impending danger, which made it all the more haunting. There was no darkness, no screaming, just the false calm before the storm. As 11 p.m. approached, Cherish said she was hungry. Smith said he was taking her to the McDonald's inside Walmart to get something to eat. Rain didn't suspect anything, a moment of distraction, and that was the last time she saw her daughter. The McDonald's was closed. Smith and Cherish never returned. When Rain realized something was wrong, she ran around the store, frantically searching, calling her daughter's name in tears. She called 911, sobbing, barely able to speak. My daughter was taken by a man I trusted. The police responded quickly. They pulled out the security camera, and when they saw the video of Cherish walking out the door with Smith, everyone was stunned. A tiny girl following a man convicted of child abuse. A man who should never have been out in the world, but he was leading a small life into the dark night. The Amber Alert was activated. The news spread across Florida. Search teams were deployed throughout the night. But the next morning, a police officer made a horrifying discovery. Cherish's body was found near a church in a shallow ditch. There were signs of a brutal crime on her body. And from that moment on, the city was never the same again. Donald Smith was arrested that same day. He did not flee, nor did he resist. His face was cold, emotionless. As if to him, what had just happened was just a familiar act. No one could understand the psychology of such a person. But what made people even more indignant, why was he free, despite having been convicted many times? Although he was once listed as a particularly dangerous sex offender. And that question still resonates until now. Donald James Smith. This name, after the Cherish Perrywinkle case, became a symbol of anger in Florida. But the painful truth is, his evil did not come from nowhere. It existed clearly, repeatedly, for decades before that. Smith had been in prison for crimes related to children, not once but many times. His record was dense. Seduction, harassment, possession of harmful content, even impersonating a social worker to approach families with young children. Psychologists once assessed him as dangerously disturbed, with a high risk of reoffending. Yet in 2013, just a few weeks before killing Cherish, Smith was released from prison. At this point, you're probably asking the same question millions of people have. How could someone like that be allowed back into the community without any supervision? After his release, Smith was placed on probation. But no one was watching him closely. No police were around. No one was warning the public that a child predator was living in their midst. And then within days, he found Cherish Perrywinkle, a struggling mother. And he knew he'd found his next victim. "He didn't just trick me," Cherish later said. "He hunted me. He was watching me. He was planning. He knew exactly what he was doing." That fateful night when cameras caught Cherish leaving Walmart with Smith, something no one expected, Smith was driving his mother's car. That car, a white Dodge, was where Cherish spent her haunting final hours. Forensics determined that the baby was killed inside the car before being abandoned in a ditch near a church. The case not only shocked the country, but also threw Cherish Perrywinkle into a public storm. On social media, people criticized her fiercely. They called her a stupid mother, a person who gave her child to a murderer, and some even said, "You deserve to lose your child." But do you think so? A single woman struggling in life, seduced by a cleverly disguised person, who among us, if put in that situation, can be sure that we would do differently. Cherish did not just lose her child. She also lost forgiveness from society. She was isolated, depressed, and almost committed suicide many times. In a rare interview, Cherish said, "I know I was wrong. But being wrong because I believed in goodness, is it a crime worth trading my daughter's life for?" But in Cherin's pain, a larger question arose. Are we doing enough as a society to protect our children? Donald Smith made no secret of his guilt. When he was arrested, he told the police, "I know I'm going to be executed, I don't care." He smiled, coldly, as if a child's life was worth less than his moment of satisfaction. He made no apologies, no remorse, and no explanation. The entire nation watched Donald Smith's trial. Prosecutors presented DNA evidence, body cameras, forensic evidence. They said, "We're not just trying a man. We're trying a system that failed." Cherish sat in court. Her face was haggard, holding a picture of her child. When the medical examiner described Cherish's body, her face was badly bruised, her limbs bruised, the courtroom fell silent. A mother must hear about how her child left the world, while the killer sits there, unmoved. Florida was silent. The story of Cherish Perrywinkle was no longer just a murder, it became a symbol of the collapse of faith. People no longer cared who Donald Smith was. They wanted to know, can justice still exist when a man who repeatedly harmed children is released, only to take the life of another child? Donald Smith's trial took place in early 2018, nearly 5 years after Cherish's death. From the outside, the Duval County Courthouse looked like any other government building. But inside, all eyes were on one person. Cherish Perrywinkle. The mother sat in the middle of the courtroom, her eyes sunken as if she had no more tears to cry. Her hands clutched a picture of Cherish, the little girl in the pretty little dress, her innocent smile, unaware of the cruelty of the world. When the prosecutors stepped forward, everyone held their breath. The first words they spoke were not about the crime, but about the most infuriating truth. Donald Smith should not have been out in the world. He should not have been in the supermarket that night, and Cherish Perrywinkle should still be alive. When the evidence was presented, DNA, forensic evidence, surveillance cameras, there was no doubt that Smith had taken, tortured, and murdered Cherish. But it was his demeanor that sent shivers down the courtroom. He sat silently, unapologetic, unexpressive. When the recording of the 911 call was played, in which Cherish had sobbed and begged the police for help, saying in despair that "my daughter went with a man and never came back," Donald Smith just sat there. His eyes were downcast, his hands clasped together as if this were just a meaningless administrative procedure. No apology was heard. In her final testimony, Cherish stood up. Her voice was hoarse. "I lost my daughter forever. I lost the only light in my life, but what I can't lose is justice." As she turned to Smith, he didn't look back. "You can't kill my memories and you won't kill justice." On the day of the verdict, the court was packed. The entire nation watched the verdict. When the judge spoke, the room fell silent. Defendant Donald James Smith, the court sentences him to death. No one applauded, no one cheered, because this wasn't a victory. It was just an end to a dark chapter. After the verdict, Rain was expected to feel relieved. But the surprise was, she wasn't happy, she didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just stood up, picked up her daughter's picture, and walked quietly out the door. For many, the death penalty was a fitting punishment. But for Rain, it couldn't bring back Cherish. Nor could it erase the years of public condemnation. She once said, "I don't want him dead, I want my son alive." After the trial, Donald Smith was placed on death row at Florida State Prison. There, he would spend the rest of his life behind closed doors, under heavy guard, completely cut off from the world. But what has many people wondering is not his fate, it's Rain's final message to parents on television. If you ever think, "It will never happen to my child," you are the first person it will happen to. Don't trust strangers. Don't think that kindness is harmless, because the price of a minute of wrong trust could be your child's life. Cherish Perrywinkle is no more. An 8-year-old girl who dreamed of being a model, who loved to wear floral dresses and princess shoes, now lives only in memories, old photos, short videos, and sometimes in adults' nightmares. But her death didn't stop in the courtroom. It spread out like a cold wave to things that seemed solid, the law, trust, and even public morality. The case has left millions asking, why is a convicted child molester, once warned as dangerous, still free in society? Donald Smith should never have had that chance. He was listed as a high threat on his surveillance record. But because of legal loopholes, he was let out and no one could stop him. After Cherish's death, the state of Florida was heavily criticized. A series of child protection bills were proposed, requiring stricter supervision, travel restrictions for sex offenders, and increased awareness for parents. It was called Cherish's Law. But is any law strong enough to stop someone with bad intentions? Is there a lesson clear enough to stop us from ignoring it? What's more cruel? After the case, the victim wasn't just Cherish, it was her mother. Rain Perrywinkle became the focus of criticism. Social media, news programs, even strangers, they were all quick to accuse her. Why would you let your daughter go with a stranger? Why did you trust him so easily? Well, as a mother, you can't protect your child. But does anyone really understand her? Rain is a single mother, living in poverty, exhausted, and often ignored by the social support system. The moment Donald Smith appears with a kind smile and an offer to buy free things, it may be a rare ray of light in her dark days. No one thinks strangers will take their children. Until they do. Cherish's story is not just a family tragedy, it's a warning to a society that is too susceptible to kindness in disguise. Donald Smith didn't break in, he didn't use a weapon. He used words, a little psychological understanding, a smile at the right time. And he took a life. That's the scariest thing. It wasn't the violence, it was the pretense. It wasn't the blood, it was the trust that was taken. Years later, Cherish's name is still being talked about. Not because of how she died, but because of how her story forces people to open their eyes. In schools in Jacksonville, Florida, there are stranger warning programs, parenting classes, trainings on conditional kindness, and how to distinguish genuine kindness from toxic seduction. Rain Perrywinkle no longer appears in the media. She lives quietly away from the crowd, carrying the loss that cannot be healed. She once said in a rare occasion, "I don't need people's pity, I just want other children to come home safe. Don't let there be another Cherish." The Cherish Perrywinkle case doesn't just make us angry or sad, it makes us look at ourselves. Are we too trusting? Do we really listen to the warnings about dangerous people in our community? Do the laws do enough, or are there still loopholes through which evil can creep in? In the end, this story is not just about a little girl. It is about a society where kindness can be letter 1 ECB, L letter 1 E3, I D letter 1 E5 NG. Vanoi ch letter 1 9 m letter 1 ed 9 t kh o letter 1 ea 3 nhkh letter 1 efc mukwang ko th letter 1 3 distroke letter 1 ed 5 il letter 1 ea 5 yc letter 1 ea 3 cu letter 1 ed 9 c distroke letter 1 edd